Investors, welcome back to Green Money Momentum. I'm your host, Trevor, and we are here for our weekly preparation live stream. Everything you could expect to see this upcoming week within the markets. And we have had the futures open, and we've already seen some significant movements, especially around oil, as oil has officially reached a past $100. So we got a massive gap up here in the futures market. We are recording this just 28 minutes before the overnight session opens for the New York Stock Exchange. So we have seen the futures open up when it comes to the hard metals, also when it comes to oil, and then also we have seen some movements in crypto. So oil just recently moved up while crypto has moved down, but some God candles here in oil, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt at the moment. Right now, oil is on a rip up, officially passing that $100 mark. And right now, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air, not only because of the way the hard metals have pushed up, but also oil and the volatility index. The VIX has been rising significantly as of most recently. We have been making some higher highs with the VIX. And when we look at the 1-year chart, we are at the highest point we have been since November of last year. And the reason why the VIX is so important is because when we see the VIX rip up, that is when there is a lot of volatility present in the markets, and that is when we see a lot of different individual stocks have a plunge down. When we look at April of last year, looking at the VIX, this was right around Liberation Day, and we had a massive jump on the VIX. So the VIX recently has been rising again. A lot of fear in the air. Right now on the Fear and Greed Index, we have a reading of 27. So we are getting closer to extreme fear and seeing a big drop off in this indicator most recently, because just in January, we were in levels of greed. So there's a lot happening right now, of course, because of the war. That is why there's so much FUD right now around oil. And I just wanted to play this clip because I know this is how so many Americans are feeling right now with oil going up. So I thought this clip was hilarious here. Give me just a second so I could get the audio on for you guys. But I saw this over the weekend and I just thought this was such a funny reaction by President Trump. So give me a second here as I pull this up. But this is how so many are feeling right now with the rise in energy and oil. I know in my area, I have seen gas jump significantly. Right now across the street, the gas station has the price at $4.15. And so I'm going to run this clip here because I know this is how so many are feeling.
My issue was more the energy. I've been paying $2,100 since I first opened up. In the last 7 months, it shot up to $15,000.
What?
It's $15,000, and that's
You went from 2,100.
That clip makes me laugh so much. What? That's so funny. But yeah, so there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now because of the oil prices. We have everything going on in Iran. More missiles happened this weekend. If you just type in oil on Google, you will see a ton about worries when it does come to oil. So gas prices surge in U.S. as Iran war chokes global oil supply. White House worried as gas prices jump with ongoing U.S.-Israel war in Iran. If you just type in Iran, you see even more all the events that have happened most recently. So there's a full out war going on with Iran right now. Very unfortunate things to see. You know, I am not a proponent of war. I think this is super sad and just unfortunate for anybody who are in the areas of the Middle East that are being affected, because I know out here in Tempe, Arizona, I love my life. And it's just, I see these videos online with the bombs coming down on people, and it's just absolutely wild. I'm just so thankful in my area that is not the case. But with everything that is happening, I do believe it is important to talk about the defense sector of the market. So later today, we are going to get into some defense stocks. We'll also talk a bit more about oil or the hard metals. And also today, we do have a guest coming on the show. He is the Arizona Oracle, and he is a pretty intelligent individual when it comes to the stock market, the futures market. He is a big bull when it comes to the silver market as well. So he was telling me all about silver, and he was expecting a squeeze back when it was at $20. He was loaded up. This guy also told me about Dogecoin back in the day when it was under a cent, and I got in there and sold up at the 60-cent range. And so he is the Arizona Oracle. We are going to be bringing him later on the show. So if you stick around, you will see a guest present with us today. But then when we just talk about this week on the economic calendar, we don't have anything scheduled for tomorrow. On Tuesday, we do have some existing home sales number. On Wednesday, we do have the numbers for inflation. So we have the CPI numbers. Thursday, we have more around jobs with the initial jobless claims. We have the U.S. trade deficit, more around housing. And then on Friday, we have more around inflation, the core PCE numbers, and also GDP. So we will see if any of these numbers can influence the Fed to shift on their projection for a rate cut. Right now, we are in the blackout period where the Fed cannot talk about monetary policy. But just this last week, we saw some very disappointing numbers around the jobs. And so if the numbers this week do come in negative around the jobs, and then we see inflation is still tamed, this may influence the odds of the Fed cutting in March. But right now, I am not expecting for that to be the case. But something interesting with everything that is going on, with all the geopolitical tension, with the Sell America trade, we've seen all these other countries drop a lot of the U.S. treasuries, and with the Fed recently purchasing a lot of those treasuries. When we do look at the balance sheet with the Fed, they have recently been purchasing assets once again. When we look at the 6-month chart, we have had quite the rise when it comes to purchases by the Fed. And with everything going on geopolitically and all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the weak labor market, we could see the Fed kind of be forced to cut. Now, the Fed has been, as they say, data dependent, and they have been playing hardball. Jerome Powell, not the biggest fan of Trump. Trump, not the biggest fan of Jerome Powell. And Jerome Powell has not wanted to cut rates. Even at the last minutes meeting we had with the Fed, they were even talking about potential hikes. That is nuts. I do not see a hike coming at this next FOMC meeting. I don't likely see a cut. I don't see a rise at this next meeting. I also don't see a cut. I do see the Fed most likely just pushing. But if we continue to see things get worse, there is always the chance that we do see some capitulation in the markets, more fear, uncertainty, and doubt around everything that is happening with Iran, the jobs market, the Federal Reserve, and we could see the Fed be pressured to cut, and we could see a Fed put where the Fed has to come in and stimulate more than even they want to. The Fed wants to do things predictably and easy, just these small cuts with time. But if we start to see a lot of pressure, the Fed may have to step in, and the markets now rely so much off the M2 money supply, off the money printing from the Federal Reserve. And look at what they did in 2020 when they had all that pressure. We saw a crazy rip up in the monetary supply, the M2 money supply, the money printing, and we also saw a crazy rip up in the markets. And this is why on this channel we talk about a lot about technology and these small cap assets, because the markets, again, nowadays, with how much the Fed has pumped money into the system and how everything is so jacked up, the markets really do move a lot off the M2 money supply. And I am expecting for the Federal Reserve to step in here soon enough, whether it is at this next meeting or sometime in the future. I am not expecting it at this meeting, but if the FUD does continue to April, we could see that situation where we do see the Fed step in and cut aggressively, which would be very interesting also if it does happen to be April, because this is Jerome Powell's last session as the federal chairman. But then in May, we do have Kevin Warsh taking the place of Jerome Powell, and we know he should be a lot more suited with Donald Trump's views when it does come to cutting. So we may be seeing it in May. As I've said before, there is the old expression of stay away in May because, the summer months could be lower trading volume. But this year it might be stay away till May, till we see the Fed really step in with the new federal chairman, Kevin Warsh, in office. So we may be seeing some more bleeding this week in the markets. I could see some more capitulation. So we may have some red, but I do believe there is a silver lining. And I don't believe that the Federal Reserve or the United States government is going to let the United States fail. Also, with this big push up in oil, this is crazy here to see in the short term. But when we do look at oil in the long term, it isn't uncommon that there are pushes in oil at times. But, oil is a lot about supply and demand. And what we are seeing from the United States is they want to get their hands on even more oil. So to increase their supply, we just recently saw what happened in Venezuela. If U.S. takes complete control of that area, that will provide a lot more oil. And then we'll just have to see what goes on with Iran with time. So what I will say with oil, if you are going to invest into oil, just know that right now the candlestick chart is jumping like crazy. Again, we just reached above $100. We are very overextended on the relative strength index and then also very overextended on the MACD. So this is not to say that it can't push higher. We could see oil jump even higher, but at the same time, just like any single stock chart, once the technicals start to become overextended, we will often see a pullback. So I could see a pullback back under the $100 mark with oil, but some serious geopolitical tensions in the air right now. Let's take a look here at the hard metals. Let's see how the hard metals are performing. And then also I'm going to get to the chat here in a second. I see a few of you have chatted. So for everybody who is here, I appreciate you for joining the live stream once again. So we've actually seen a gap down here in gold. In the futures market to start. Let's see how silver is looking. Let's take a look here at the silver's futures. Also, silver being dropped down here at $81, but I am still very bullish on silver. Again, we are bringing a guest here on the show, the Arizona Oracle, who owns a ton of silver here very soon, and he is going to give his thoughts and opinions on silver because I do believe that silver is going to push a lot higher and now may be a great buying opportunity right where it is at the 50-day moving average. Also, we have seen a big retraction from the highs when silver got all the way up to $120. And a big reason for the push down in silver is because of the COMEX and the rising when it does come to the margin requirements. And so now let's get to the live chat here. We got George in the chat. George, hey, thank you so much for joining us here, the chat. Wow, it looks a little bit different today. It looks like they've switched something up. Now we got the chat covering my face. I wonder if that is the style I have here on chat or if that's just the way they are doing the chat here on Stream East. Now I'm going to see if I could switch that because that is funky. I like when it was a little bit smaller on the left. We also have Stephanie Diaz, Big April. Stephanie, thank you for joining us in the live stream today here. Let me edit myself here if I could pull myself up higher. That is ugly how they have the live chat. Now, you guys who have been here for the last chats know exactly what I'm talking about. Usually a bit more cleaner, but here, we'll push myself up here, put myself in the middle. That way the live chat does not cover Trevor right here. So there we go. Big April. Hey, I could absolutely agree, especially once we get Kevin Warsh to take the place of Jerome Powell. That is highly anticipated. And when he does get into the spot of Jerome, when he is the new federal chairman, the expectations of a rate cut are significantly higher than when Jerome Powell is in that spot currently. So let's just take a look here at some of the defense tickers here. So we have the reference symbols. We have WAR. This is an ETF here. We have Palantir on the list. We'll also talk a bit about Big Bear AI. We also have Ondis, which I do believe is reporting earnings this next week. So when we do look at the earnings calendar, we do have a lot of different names reporting this week. We also do have a big AI player in Oracle. So going to be interesting to see where Oracle does come in this week. We got some more here in the live chat somewhere. Inevitable Incredible says, hello, welcome to the chat. Great to see you here. And then now Fed print, baby print. I absolutely agree that the Fed is going to print. And there's a lot of pressure going on right now. And there are a lot of bears within the air right now. So there are so many bears calling for this to be the end of the world. When we do look at the major indexes of the S&P and the NASDAQ, we could see that both have been having some hard movements now for quite some time, going pretty sideways. The S&P has actually made some new all-time highs back in February, but the NASDAQ has greatly lagged, still not reaching the highs that were set all the way back in October after a hyper bullish trend. So I do believe that this bullish trend will continue, and I do believe it's going to continue with the money printing whenever the Fed does step in. But here in the short term, the bears are looking at everything that is going on, and they are celebrating, thinking that this is going to be the end of the world. But I do not believe that, because when we do look at the history of the markets, especially in the last decade, anytime there are some major problems occurring, anything that could actually send the markets off of a cliff, this is when the Fed does step in. So I absolutely agree with you, Stephanie, that the Fed is going to print, baby print. Now back to the economic calendar, we do have Oracle this week, which is going to be interesting for the AI sector. We do have some big companies reporting on Thursday. We have Dollar General, Dick's Sporting Goods. Who do we have here? Who is this Lee company? Lee Auto, not exactly sure who Lee Auto is, but we also have Ulta. So we do got some big box stores reporting this next week. We also have the dating website of Bumble, and it does look like their revenue is decreasing. So it looks like some users are going off of Bumble. That is no surprise with how terrible Bumble is. If you have ever been on Bumble, you know exactly what I am talking about. All the NFL linemen and liberal women you run into. It is really terrible. But let's take a look here at Bumble in terms of technical analysis. So their next earnings is not expected to be great. Right now, under the 200-day and 50-day moving average, just at $3.10. The markets, by the way, are going to open up here in 13 minutes. But we're going to talk really quick about some defense names, because we could see a big push up here in the overnight with the defense names. So recently, Big Bear on Friday did have a pretty big day. We have retracted on Big Bear well under the 50-day and 200-day MA, but we did see a decent push on Friday. And with all the geopolitical tension in the air, there is the possibility that we do see a big run up in the defense sector. I could see Big Bear having another push up on Monday, tomorrow, possibly getting up to $4.50. Palantir is another very interesting play right now. Palantir did jump back up to the 50-day moving average and is squeezing right in between the 50-day and the 200-day MA right now, but getting a bit overextended on the relative strength index. Still opportunity to run higher and looking a bit overextended, or could get to opportunities of overextended on the MACD, but recently seeing a bullish cross. But with everything we are seeing with the defense sector, things are looking very bullish right now, and I could expect for Palantir to continue to run up. When we look at Ondas actually did have a push down most recently, a bloody Friday in Ondas, down by 6%. But I do believe that Ondas may be reporting this week. It's either this week or next week. Let's type in Ondas here and see when Ondas does have their earnings. So in 12 days on March 20th. So if the defense sector is still running hot by then, we could see a lot higher of a price with Ondas. But what I like with Ondas is, you know, they are well positioned with everything that is happening right now. They do provide drone technology, and their next quarterly is expected to absolutely blow all the other quarterlies out of the water, with their highest revenue expectation ever at 27 million. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Ondas earnings comes out. Ondas is a small market cap company. Right now, they have a market cap at just $5 billion. In terms of technical analysis, right now, Ondas is sitting right at the 50-day moving average, is right at the middle on the relative strength index, and then looking a bit flat on the MACD, most recently having a bullish cross, but could see a bearish cross. But again, when it does come to the markets right now, defense is running hot. Let's take a look at oil again. Let's see if oil has moved up since we last talked about it. Again, absolutely insane. Wow, look at that. Oil is really pushing up here at 107. Again, some massive green candlesticks in oil, causing a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air. Let's take a look over at crypto really quick, because when the futures markets did open, crypto did have a drop down. So Bitcoin not really down by too much. You could see the plunge that happened here when the futures did open up and oil was up. Bitcoin did initially drop down. When we do look at the long-term technical analysis with Bitcoin, though, what is positive is things have been choppy and sideways with Bitcoin, but most recently when the war really started to break out with Iran and when it was really confirmed, we did see a plunge in many assets, including cryptocurrency, but we didn't quite see Bitcoin reach back to the lows that were created in February. So it didn't create a lower low. So right now we are just chopping sideways. Not long ago, Bitcoin was reaching back into 70,000, and a major level of support slash resistance currently with Bitcoin is at 75,000 on Bitcoin. So there's a lot happening with the asset markets right now. Again, the volatility index has been rising, and there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air. A lot of blood, but I still believe in the silver lining. I do believe that the markets will push up again, whether it is the Fed that influenced the markets with more money printing, with cutting the rates, which I think so many want to see, because there has been a lot of pressure with where the current interest rate is when it comes to the housing market, when it comes to borrowing right now. We are seeing some issues with private credit as well. And so the Fed is not going to allow the markets to fail. Also very interesting, just because of everything that is happening right now with other countries and the Sell America trade. So I am expecting for the Fed to step in. I'm not saying it's going to be this next meeting. It could possibly be April if we see more bleeding and capitulation in the markets, but I am thinking that it is going to happen in June. Right now, the probabilities of that happening are at 48%. So about a 50% chance that we do see the Fed cut in May. And if we see things get a lot worse, if we see the price of oil continue to rise to then, or we just see elevated levels, I do expect for these odds to greatly shift, to be up closer to 100%. And we may see a bigger cut than what the Fed has been doing. Again, we'll have a new federal chairman who wants to set expectations with the markets, come in with a good name, and also make the president happy. Let's see what else I had here. I think this basically covers everything that I wanted to talk about when it just comes to the market, everything we are expecting to see. Again, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air. The fear and greed index currently with a reading of 27. We are almost back in levels of extreme fear. But what's also interesting is so many plays have already retracted so hard since October, including one of my favorites here, Robinhood stock, currently at $76. But I do believe that we may be seeing an oversold reversal here. Oh, we got our moderator here. We have Eric. I like your profile picture there, Eric. It looks like you are at a Green Bay game there. You got your cheese hat there. I like that, Eric. I'll be day trading Vlo today. Make no mistake, refineries are going to profit big time. Let's take a look at Vlo here. Why is my keyboard not working? Give me a second here. I'm having just slight technical issues. But hey, Eric, great to see you in the live stream today. I hope everything is going well for you. You're looking at Valero, and that engages in the manufacture and marketing of transportation fuels and other petro products. Let's take a look. Let's see if my keyboard will work. There we go. VLO. So you're going to be trading this, huh, Eric? Interesting one here. Looks like it is on a bullish rip. Again, looking a bit overextended on the technicals when we look at the long term, but just because the technicals are a bit overextended doesn't mean that it can't run higher, especially with everything that is happening with the macros currently. With the way the macros are supporting this play, could definitely run a lot higher. So Eric, great to see you here in the stream. I do think that this is a great day trading opportunity. Talking about day trading opportunities, this last week I was day trading a lot in Circle Internet Group, which was having a big push up, had a stagnant Friday, but right at this level, also just like oil, right at $100. So right now, this has been running hot. If you know Circle Internet Group, this is the company that has the US dollar coin. They have a ton of US treasuries on their balance sheet. Right now, a very hot in play stock. And I was day trading this last week. So I was looking at Circle Internet Group. Let's take a look here. I think I have some notes from last week. There were some other plays on here too. As always, I was looking at the quantum stocks. Let's take a look here at iShares Silver. Here shortly, the overnight markets are going to open in 5 minutes, so we're going to see some movements here. We'll see how silver is doing. iShares Silver right now sitting at 76, well under that 52-week high, which was at 108. Looking great in terms of technical analysis. Let's take a look here. Let's see if I had anything else here. I'm going to close some tabs. The defense stocks. Oh, yeah. And I wanted to get on this later after we invite the Arizona Oracle on, which is just going to be about 5 minutes after we have the overnight session open here. We're going to take a look at one of Trump's funniest moments in his presidency, and that is when he did visit the Federal Reserve construction site. So just like we saw earlier, if you weren't here for the barbershop talk, when the guy was telling him all about energy, that was another very comedic moment. He said, "What?" So that was so funny. So we'll be visiting that clip later. Otherwise, we're going to have the Arizona Oracle here on in just a couple minutes. But before that, we're going to see the overnight sessions open. We're going to see how the S&P and the triple Qs does react to what just happened with the oil markets. I am not expecting to see a positive open for the markets. I do believe we are going to see some gaps down, especially with how cryptocurrency has been reacting to oil, down just a little bit, not down too much, just slight for crypto, so not too crazy, but I am expecting a drop here to start here in the overnight session in just 3 minutes. With the current disclosure of Armed Services Committee member purchases of BBAI and the FIFA game starting in 3.5 months, you better be in Big Bear AI big time. Yeah, we just talked about Big Bear a couple moments ago. Eric, I know you are a big bull on the Big Bear. I do love the Big Bear, and recently I did add to my positions in the Big Bear. So I have here highlighted in green all the different times where I have personally added to Big Bear AI, and I did add right here when we saw this most recent retraction right at this bullish cross on the MACD, and I did hear about some insiders purchasing on Big Bear AI, and we just went through their most recent earnings, and that earnings was actually pretty positive, showing that they have the strongest balance sheet in the history of the company. So right now, things are looking great in the Big Bear. Again, the one negative I saw was the talks about possible dilution. The approval, 97% approval, dilution up to 500 million shares. I do not like to see dilution, but I do like to see how Big Bear is growing as a company. And 430, so right between 350, 430, 450, have been major levels of support and resistance with Big Bear AI. So let's see if Big Bear could break past this level of a 430, possibly here in just 2 minutes. Let's see if we gap up or down. I am expecting for the major indexes to have a drop off and many different stocks just because of the fear in the air. But defense right now is looking bullish, and something that was talked about in the last earnings call with Big Bear is their involvement with the Middle East. So again, unfortunate everything that is happening right now, but this could be a positive for the defense stocks and Big Bear AI. Another day, another trade. Great to see you here. Yes, I agree. Some rockets for the Big Bear. Again, there are many stocks right now that are around defense that are looking very bullish. A ETF here. So if you feel a bit uncertain about one or two tickers, if you want to have some exposure to defense, but you don't necessarily want to just be in Big Bear or Palantir or, any of the other individual ones we have mentioned, you could always get into this ETF, which is WAR, which is WAR. So a very easy one to remember. This is a defense ETF here. We have some other ones here. Let's take a look. We have QQ, LHX, there's Lockheed Martin. That's a big one. So a lot of different defense names right now, which could be running very hot. And it looks like we have the overnight session opening up here in just a minute. So if you are new here, or if you just joined in, every single Sunday, we are going live here. Oh, and look at that. Oh my gosh, some blood. Woo-wee. Well, that is why we do this every single Sunday, because we want to see how the overnight sessions open. My goodness, some blood. Everything is down to start. I'm just looking here on my phone here. We have AMD down. We have Robinhood down. We have the major indexes down. We have some blood here. Bring the Oracle on. We will be bringing the Arizona Oracle on here in just a few moments, but let's take a look here at Oracle stock. Let's see how that has reacted. Yeah, if you just joined us here, everybody, we are going to have a special guest here in just a couple moments. That is going to be the Arizona Oracle. This is a great friend of mine, a friend who has predicted many different market movements, including Dogecoin when it was under a cent. He told me about it, and he also was telling me to sell right around Saturday Night Live. One of the best plays I have ever had. He is also big into silver. The Arizona Oracle will be on here in just a second, but wow, a bloody drop that we have seen in both of the major indexes. A significant drop, down by 1.6% in the SPY and 1.8% in the triple Qs. The triple Qs under $600 right now, the SPY at 661. It looks like the bears right now are in full control of the overnight market. So what I'll always say every single time we open up on Sunday is this is just the beginning of the week. This is just the overnight market, but the real market moves happen in the first 30 minutes to hour of the day, and also during power hour at the very end of the market session. But I do expect for the main volatile movements to happen at the very beginning of the market open here. Just in the morning. And by the way, it matters here for me in Arizona. We are now in the time frame where the clocks have moved. So here in Arizona, I'm actually doing this an hour earlier than I have been most recently because the clocks have officially moved. But it looks like we've had a lot of big drops, basically everything having drops here. We have Robinhood bleeding at the moment at $74. We have talked with Robinhood. There's a major level of resistance at 80. So let's see how the markets react this week. We could drop a bit lower, but we recently did see a bullish cross on the MACD jumping up on the relative strength index, but most stocks right now are going to move off of the macros. Although I'm very bullish in Robinhood, the company, when it does come to the macros, things are looking very fearful. We've had a big drop in advanced micro devices down to $3.33. Let's say down by 3.34%, down by $6.60. Let's see if the market bleed could be bad enough to where AMD does fill this gap that was set with the OpenAI deal back in October. I know a lot of you are fans of Big Bear AI. Let's see how Big Bear has opened up, being a defense stock. So has had a little bit of a drop, but nothing compared to what we are seeing in some other plays right now. So just a little bit of a downtick in Big Bear by less than a percent. Well, now by 1.6%. Wow, how quickly things move. Let's take a look at Palantir. Let's see how Palantir has opened up. Palantir has also opened up in the red. Let's see if the major indexes of war has changed. So that is the same here. Let's take a look here at let's take a look here at Quantum. Let's see how Quantum has opened up. Quantum also having a bleed here, down by 3% in the overnight session. Just because we have bled here in the overnights, this is a lot of the reaction to the oil futures. Oil just recently jumped above $100. A lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right now, oil has had a big gap up at $107. And so the markets are reacting to oil right now. But again, this is just the overnight session. This is not to say that the markets can't that have a strong recovery in the mornings or even more of a cold plunge. The one positive for tomorrow, we don't have anything on the economic calendar that should shift the sentiment more towards the downside. So we don't have anything number-wise. We don't have inflation tomorrow. We don't have jobs reports numbers tomorrow that could influence even more downside. But with that being said, also sometimes the numbers on the economic calendar can also influence bullish momentum. So we won't be seeing either of that with the economic calendar. Drop it low, girl. That is funny. And SoFi down $4. Yeah, let's take a look here at SoFi. I am in Robinhood. I am not in SoFi, but let's take a look here. Whoa, SoFi having a bleed here. Wow, not just by 4, but by 5. Ouch, 5% in SoFi. With that being said, we are going to bring on our special guest here now that we've seen how the markets have opened. Let's see real quick if cryptocurrency has moved anymore with this too. Bitcoin still reacting about the same. It is actually positive to see that Bitcoin is not being slaughtered too much with the news around oil, because when it does come to cryptocurrency and when it does come to Bitcoins, it is a leading indicator of the markets. And so Bitcoin actually not having too bad of a bleed. Also, Bitcoin and all of crypto, in my opinion, is very bullish right now with the big bill, the Clarity Act, that should be passed sometime in the near future. And if you just think about these other countries that have currencies that are dropping in value, you know, Iran has seen their currency get crushed. The cryptocurrency is a good place to store the value. So now, everyone, give me just a second here. We are going to bring on our special guest, the Arizona Oracle. Again, the Arizona Oracle has called many different plays. He has been a great friend of mine for a long time. He has a lot he wants to talk about when it comes to silver, and also he is a veteran. So he was previously in the military, and he has also talked to me a lot about these tensions with Iran, and he did call this ahead of time. So let me invite him here. I'm going to send him the invite link. Arizona Oracle, I know you are watching, so you are going to see this here in just a second. I'm sending it to you via text message. He should be popping up here in just a moment. And with that being said, guys, I'm just going to get a little bit of water. I will be right back, but stay tuned as we are going to have the Arizona Oracle here in Also, that was basically everything I wanted to talk about for the weekly preparation for, you know, the upcoming week, what we can expect and everything like that. So if you just joined us, the first 30 minutes loaded with information. Now we're going to have our guests, but if anybody has anything to say in the live chat, please drop the comment down below or in the side wherever you get the live chat, whether you're watching it via mobile or via desktop. I always love when you guys interact. And again, I love doing this. So I have so much fun doing this every single week. It's been great to go live. And, you know, right now there's a lot to prepare for in the stock market. We got the Arizona Oracle. He's going to be coming on here in just a second. Let's take a look here. Let's pull back up. It's so funky how this live chat is. I missed the old live chat. Just a week ago, the live chat looked a lot better. So I'm wondering if this is just a thing on StreamYard, how the comments come up here, or if this is something that I have done personally. But let's see. Bitcoin here has dropped just a little bit. Let's take a look here at XRP. Let's see how Ripple is performing at 1.347. Still in a pretty nasty downtrend, still well under the 50-day moving average. Let's take a look here at Solana. So Solana is a coin where I have made a lot of money. So I've actually seen some of my biggest returns when it comes to cryptocurrency. Currently not in any cryptocurrency, but two of the most euphoric moves that I have personally had is when the Arizona Oracle told me about Dogecoin when I got in when it was under a cent, and then I sold in the 60 cent range right before Saturday Night Live. And then also with Solana, I had a friend tell me about Solana when it was back at 20, and I actually ended up selling Solana in the 200s. And then I started to do more options investing, but I had a pretty good, slightly under 10x in Solana because I did start to get in at 20, but then I really started to load in at around 60, and then I sold around the 200, 220 range. But it was great the time when I did sell my Solana, because right as I sold my Solana, we started to see some retractions, and we've seen crypto perform a lot more harsh here. And during that time, I've been in the markets and in a lot of different options contracts. Give me just a second, everybody. The Arizona Oracle is telling me he is having some technical issues with joining the live stream. So I'm just going to put myself on mute for just a moment, but don't go anywhere. I'm just going to give him a call. We might be talking to him via phone here, but I would like to actually put him on the stream. I do believe the audio quality would be better, but everyone give me just 1 second as I'm going to give him a call and see what is going on. I'm just going to mute myself for just a moment. All right, live audience, we now officially have the Arizona Oracle. For some reason here on StreamYard, it was giving him some issues, but we do got him via phone. So Arizona Oracle, say hello to everybody in the live stream.
Hello, world. How are y'all doing? All right, so hey, I actually just got off the phone with, can't give out a name drop, but he's one of our friends in Washington, and we are not looking to actually put boots on ground. All those rumors that you're actually seeing on the news. Trump's all about winning, and our biggest fear right now is our energy crisis. It's scary. It's actually terrifying. So apparently, since we said hello to Maduro and Venezuela, all of the Chinese contracts with crude oil and energy has gone away. And now with Iran, their energy gone after what happened on Saturday, us taking out their refineries. So,
oh, man, that was crazy. I saw the videos of that, and that was absolutely insane. The bombing you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. So
yeah.
It's going to continue. The idea of barrels being over $100 like a blink of an eye, that's a shot in the dark. We're going to see things go a lot higher. But the crazy thing is China. So now China's in play. So just by knocking out Venezuela and Iran, they lost a third of all of their oil. All of their oil that is coming into their country, gone. So we're going to see China be hit by an energy crisis really soon, and that's going to affect everything that we get from them. So we're seeing an energy war, and that's not going to go away. But if you're betting on energy, good call. But Trump's not dumb enough. He's not going to go put boots on ground because he knows the biggest loss is going to happen for him then. And that's what our DC guy just gave us. But one big, beautiful thing. It's all not doom and gloom in the air. We have X, formerly known as Twitter, Elon Musk's beautiful megahorn. That is now in test phase for their new payment system. I do not know who they're going with. I say your audience can definitely do the research themselves, but one of the most magnifying possibility of this year outside of betting on energy or defense is definitely in finance. Finding out who's going to be your new payment system, from sending money to your buddies or just paying for your Uber Eats. It might be going heavily on X, but that's a really exciting thing to definitely look into.
So here I have a question for you here, because you're big into the silver market, and we were talking about this just not long ago. Let me pull up these silver futures here on screen. I would be curious to hear, do you have any insight on silver this week? What do you predict going forward? What do you think about the COMEX and how they've raised margins so many times? Do you think there's an insufficient actual, like, real amount of real physical silver, like a lot of manipulation? Just curious to hear your opinions on that.
So, yeah, you'll see a lot of stuff on YouTube about everyone's running out, get all the silver you can today. They're half right, but they're also half wrong. Their time is wrong. So whenever you look at the COMEX, or if you want to go look at, which I really follow, the LBMA, going and looking at the boys over in London, there's things that it says where it's like, this is what they have in their vaults. And then they also have a collection that it is supposed to be coming to them, like orders that's going to be dropping from the refineries after the bricks are made. They can actually use that as leverage to actually extend orders out for payment. But that's all about to run dry, because India is now going to start their own silver and gold institutions. They're pulling all of their bullion come April 1st out of the LBMA. We're going to see the London banks essentially lose 1/3 of all of their bullion gone out of London, and it's going to happen on the 1st. So all these guys are saying, hey, buy all the silver you can. You have 24, 48 hours. It's not true. Y'all got about 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, especially if things kick off with China. But Trump's a smart man. He's not going to go to war with China because he knows that's a war that he doesn't want to step into. It's going to cause too many casualties. Yeah. And, yeah, he's going to save us from that. But I wouldn't count on too much else, but definitely a hot one. Silver 2 months out from now. And just watch energy. Keep your eyes on energy. And
you've been in silver for a while now. You got into silver very early, didn't you?
So
what was the spot
this one
price?
Guy, I got to introduce you guys to him. His name is Andrew Roth Silverstein. I know it sounds crazy, but this guy is a G. All right, so I met this guy in a Target parking lot while my wife was shopping, and I was just chilling. And I saw this guy. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. He's the one who turned me on to silver. This is when it was at $20. This was right before COVID. And I went to my first silver shop, and I started collecting small little coins, $20 here and there. And then COVID hit. Right when COVID hit, all of a sudden, everyone was FOMO, fear. And I just collected it as a fun hobby. And let alone, you start to find out all this stuff that silver is actually truly used for. And I'm like, this guy wasn't totally off.
And I'm happy, not to interrupt you, but I'm happy you brought that up, because, you know, you told me something the other day that I thought was very interesting, just the utility of silver. Because you know me, I'm mainly tech heavy, so I like to be in tech. And of course, I know about the uses of hard metals in tech. You got gold, silver, copper, of course, all of that. But something that was eye-opening to me is you talked about how much silver are in the missiles. You were saying something about that recently?
Yes. So anywhere from up to 100 to 500 ounces per cruise missile. It sounds crazy. But if you look at just what silver actually is truly used for, it'll blow your mind. It's the most conductive agent out there. Like, we're going to be needing silver. It's scary because everything's going robotics. I love robotics. That's your future. That's going to take your job, especially if you're blue collar, unless you're in the true trades. Something a robot truly can't do, but it's coming. It's already taken Amazon jobs. It's already going. But for silver, it's going to go a lot higher. It's just not going to happen tomorrow, next week. and it ain't going to happen next month. I would say definitely I would be looking when it's going to be at the middle of the year. June is going to be one of the craziest months in finance. What you do today, where you put your dollars today, you'll probably be able to double it by June. But I would say definitely go defense, definitely energy, and silver will break, but only after India takes their bullion out of London.
Yeah, and I agree with you about that time frame because we do get the new federal chairman in May. That is the expectation. We finally get Jerome Powell out, and it's going to be very interesting to see what Kevin Warsh does, if he is aligned with what we expect. Donald Trump's views to cut. So we will just have to see. Time will tell. But I agree with you right now, as I always say, that you want to invest when there's blood in the streets, right? When there is so much fear right now, when the fear and greed index is at fear, possibly reaching into extreme fear tomorrow. It's like, this is where you want to position yourself, invest into the bear market and trade in the bull market. Because right now, if you really do start making some great investments, even if it's very painful in the short term, over the long term, you could see some serious, crazy return on investment, especially if the Federal Reserve really starts to turn on that money printer.
Oh, yeah. Everything in plastics, everything in rubber, methane, ethanol, everything's going to go up in price. Just expect everything in your stores is going to go up, only because I wouldn't hold my breath for 120 before the end of this month. Or at the end of this week.
Oh, 120 oil. Yeah, well, again, we've seen a big rip up here. I mean, that's not that far off, with it currently being at 107, and where we have seen the major indexes of the S&P and the triple Qs open up here. Crazy to even say here in the overnight hours that the triple Qs is down by almost 2%. That is quite the plunge to have in the overnight session. And let's take a look here at oil. Let's see if oil has moved up any bit more, because oil is really what is influencing the overnight movements right now. I got an oil index here. I want to pull up the crude oil futures. Again, oil at 107.68, having a massive jump up here, and now going a bit sideways, possibly until we open up in tomorrow's session. But Mr. Arizona Oracle, thank you for joining us today. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss, or any other thoughts you had before we go forward?
One little tip, one little gift. Keep your eyes on a company called Andrill, one of the most beautiful defense companies. If you think we're going hard into the darkness, definitely keep your eyes out for Andrill. Defense company. It is in robotics. It is in drones, and the CEO was the former creator and CEO of Oculus Rift. He is absolutely incredible. His vision is beautiful. Not so much as betting on the product, even though it's beautiful, but betting on the individual that's at the helm of this company. It could do wild things, and I personally am definitely going to put my money behind it when they go public. It's not announced, but if there's something to keep on your guys' mind, keep your eye on Andrill.
I agree with that. No, I've done some research on Andrill myself, and yeah, pretty crazy everything that we are seeing. And yeah, you are a veteran yourself, right?
Yes. 8 years, was in Iraq for 16 months, but yeah, love my country. Time over there had its ups and downs, but that's for a former conversation in the future. But yeah, if boots go on the ground, another little cookie, I would definitely look into defense on KBR. Those are the boys that actually feed your troops and give them all the supplies. And in a time of war, everything that they touch doubles.
Yeah, well, pretty crazy stuff. Again, great to have you on the live stream today. It was fun. This was our first official guest we've ever had, so it was great to have you on, Mr. Oracle. And I'm sure I'll be giving you a call here shortly after I finish the live stream.
Beautiful. Awesome. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care. All right, everyone. So that was the Arizona Oracle. Again, one of my friends who's a veteran, dropping his opinion and some knowledge when it does come to defense, when it comes to oil. Again, also when it comes to silver. Incredible story he has there, getting into silver very early on before 2020. This year, silver has absolutely exploded. We saw at one point silver got all the way up to 120. Here in the overnight session, we are seeing a plunge here in silver, but a lot of the markets are plunging right now. I would say the hard metals are a lot more bullish than many different individual stocks. But overall, I am very bullish on the markets, but we are seeing a lot of pressure here in the short term. And I do believe what could start to relieve some of that pressure is if the Fed starts to cut rates and starts to stimulate the economy a bit more. I believe we should be doing it, especially with how weak the labor market is, and also with how weak the labor market really is when we look at how all these numbers are always revised down. So it's funny when it does come to the economic calendar in the short term, we either get a celebration or we get people panicking from what comes out with these numbers around jobs or the CPI or any of these government numbers. But so often they are revised down in the future, showing that the numbers were always worse than were actually reported. The Lord of Swords says, great jobs. Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Lord of Swords. Great to see you here in the live stream. It was great to have the Arizona Oracle on. He, again, is a veteran. I believe that Eric Poley, you are also a veteran. So to anybody who is a veteran of our great country, thank you for your service. Yeah, we will be bringing them on more times in the future. And yeah, again, with this week, I'll say exactly what I've said all stream. It may be a bloody week, but there is a silver lining. And I do believe that the opportunities right now are presenting themselves. And so I did want to show one last clip because, again, things during this presidency have been pretty comedic at times with President Trump. And, it's so funny when it does come to President Trump because, a lot of people do have hate for Trump. And I had a girlfriend back in the day. This was way back in the day. This was like this was a long time ago, 2019, right? I wasn't political at that point. I barely, knew anything about the Republicans or the Democrats, but she got so mad at me, literally. Oh my God. She freaked out on me like crazy because I said that I liked Donald Trump because I thought he was funny. She asked my opinion on Donald Trump, and I literally said, I just thought he was funny. I didn't really care about anything he was doing with politics or as the president. But, as a child growing up, I watched the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, and Donald Trump was on there, and he one time got into a fight with Vince McMahon, and it was around WrestleMania 23. So whether you like the guy or you hate the guy, you can't deny that he does bring some comedy to the world, some comedic clips. And so I wanted to rerun this clip that I had from a while back because talking about our president and the Federal Reserve, we know that Donald Trump is not a fan of the Fed, not a fan of Jerome Powell. And I just thought this video right here was so funny. So we're going to run back this clip. This, crazy enough, time is flying so quick. This was from 7 months ago. This was July 24th. And this was when Donald Trump really started to go at the Fed a lot heavier. And he even visited the construction site that is going on with the Federal Reserve. Stephanie Diaz says, so stack silver and go for X crypto. I mean, with what the Arizona Oracle said, he would agree with you. Again, he is big into silver. And he was also talking about those payments when it does come to X. But we're going to run this clip really quick with when Trump did visit the Federal Reserve. And if you guys want to say anything in the chat after we run through this clip, maybe just a few more things, and then we will wrap up here on this Sunday. So I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to actually take myself off screen, and you'll just get the reaction from when all this happened. But great comedy here. Hello and welcome back to Green Money Momentum. I'm your host, Trevor, and today we're going to be reacting to this clip of Trump meeting with Jerome Powell at the construction site of the Federal Reserve. So there's been a lot of tension between these two men this year. We know that Trump has been pressuring Jerome Powell to cut rates, and then all of a sudden he discovered this big construction site going on. And so I watched about the first 20 seconds of this, and I just thought it was so funny. You could definitely see the tension in the room between the head of the Federal Reserve and the president. So I figured I would share this clip with everybody. This is just so funny. So we're going to have our live reaction to this, and we're going to see what has to be said. Again, Jerome Powell under a lot of fire. So let's see how this interaction between the two.
Well, thank you very much. We're looking at the construction, and we're with the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. And it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed, one of the reasons I wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses, wanted to figure out why.
Right there, that was about where I watched it, and it's just so funny. You could see the tension between these two and then Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell under a lot of fire on rate cuts, so let's see if that gets mentioned here.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody. But
Yeah, it just came out.
our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2. This came from us.
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added our entire capital. Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
It's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening. And it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use. But no, we don't expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off every once in a while when we're not under too much danger. So, any questions?
Mr. President, as a real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him.
Mr. President, using colas.
Oh, that's a classic liner there. That is so funny. We know there's been the drama between these two, and Trump has been talking about firing Jerome Powell. That was a loaded question from that reporter. Look at how defeated Jerome Powell looks. Sheesh.
Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished. And in many ways, it's too bad it started, but it did start. And it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time because it looks like it's got a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So,
President, are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. But other than that, what can I tell you? The country's doing really well. I just briefed the chairman on the deal we made with Japan. Japan is putting up $550 billion in order to lower their tariffs a little bit. That way they have a little bit lower tariff. And they also opened their country to free trade, which nobody thought was even a possibility. And we get a zero tariff in the free trade. We don't pay tariffs, and they're going to pay 15% on everything they send into our country. So it's great.
So that's some interesting just body language to watch right there. When you watch the clip, it's Trump's talking about everything positive that's been going on, this big historic deal with Japan, how great the economy is doing. And Jerome Powell, I'll rewind that there. Look at how upset he looks. He just looks so mad. He's looking down. So some people think that Jerome Powell has Trump derangement syndrome and is just not cutting rates because of his dislike of Donald Trump. Jerome Powell says that he is being dated. Almost forgot to unmute myself, but that is basically that clip there. And hey, Eric, I appreciate your chat here on the live saying, relax, brother, with fuel prices up 50 cents a gallon in the last week. Most people are very concerned about how they're going to put fuel in their cars and don't have time for investment videos. Yes, to everybody who is here in the live today or who is still watching different investment videos, still trying to learn and improve yourself as an investor. Most recently, we have seen some crazy things with the economy and with the stock market. So many have been tapped out in the short term. So if you are still here, give yourself a round of applause because things have not been easy in the short term. But I do believe that right now buying the dip is pretty good idea, and through time it will show to be a good idea. I do believe the markets will recover, and right now, while so many are so fearful, I am still remaining positive, and I am still buying into different great plays and opportunities. I am not concerned about this overnight plunge that we have seen in basically the entire market. Again, the market really starts to move in the first 30 minutes to hour of the day. So we'll see. I mean, we could even have a strong rally and a strong recovery by the time the markets open. You know, when it does come to the markets, they could be quite irrational at times. And again, the markets move so much off the M2 money supply. And so right now the Fed is in a blackout period. They can't talk about monetary policy for the next 10 days. But if we really start to see that money printer really crank up, we could see crazy rips in different assets, especially, again, just my opinion, never financial advice, but in my favorite sector of technology, in AI, in the small caps. And so I am very bullish on the markets. And again, with the bleeding, I believe there is still a silver lining. But right now, where things are at, I'm just remaining a bit cautious, just kind of having my eyes on what is going on. I have bought the dips in many different great plays and opportunities, but remaining a bit patient, and we'll just have to see what happens with the macros this week, and then also with the current war that is going on with Iran. It's kind of unpredictable right now. It's happened really so quick. We'll just have to see. Wow, oil is rising even more here. We started up to stream and it was at 107, right now at 108. So crazy to see what oil is doing, up 20% here in just the overnight. So before we go here, I would be curious if you guys in the live chat, are you bullish or bearish for this week in the stock market? If you didn't catch the first 30 minutes, we went over the economic calendar. We also went over the earnings calendar and just kind of everything that is going on, including we talked about the volatility index, which has been rising most recently at a reading of 29. And when the VIX is high, this is when we see a lot of plunge, a lot of capitulation in the markets. The last time the VIX was at its highest was back in April of last year around Liberation Day and Plata Plomo. Thanks, Trevor from the UK. Bullish. Hey, thank you for joining us. Rhino Skin, I appreciate you for being here. And that's great that you are from the United Kingdom. I am from Arizona. And I love that we are able to reach so many different individuals around the world. That is really why I started this channel, to be able to connect with other investors, to have a community, to also have this as a trading journal for myself. So we are still a relatively small channel, and each and every single one of you that show up to my daily videos or my weekly live streams, it really does help the channel grow. Every single time you guys hit the like button or engage in the comment section or the live stream chat, I am looking at really growing this channel. I've just been super busy these last months. So the last like 6 months for me have been the busiest I have ever been. And the channel has been growing a bit slow. Right now, we just have 4 in the live stream right now. One day we will get this up to the hundreds, I am telling you, but it's all of you right now who are with me that are OG followers. You get that OG ticket showing your support early on for Green Money Momentum. I will always remember all of you when we are a lot bigger in the futures. I am excited for the growth for this channel over the next 5 to 10 years. And it's also going to be a very exciting to see the growth within the stock market. And just like Eric said earlier, when it does come to finances right now, I do notice that financial talk and financial videos and podcasts, all views are basically down across the board. A lot are feeling devastated with the recent trading that we have seen because many, including myself, we are bullish on the markets. We will typically buy assets with a bullish thought, a long-term thought, thinking that assets could rise with time because they typically do. I mean, when we do look at the major indexes over time, if you just buy and hold, eventually you will be correct. But many times with the markets, the pain is in the short term of holding while your assets are bleeding and while there is also a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the air. And really a lot of market participants have been depressed and many have been tapped out since we really started to get into October of 2025, because even though the major indexes right here are still near the all-time highs that were set in October of 2025, just with this sideways consolidation that we have seen in these indexes, so many stocks have been dropped off a cliff, falling by 20, 30, 50% or even more. We've also seen a very rough time in the crypto markets, and there has been a ton of liquidations across the board. So again, if you are here right now, give yourself a pat on the back, because right now are the moments when the weaker investors or the weaker hands, and I'm not saying that to insult anybody, but this is when a lot of them will tap out and then miss the euphoric bull run that will come, which I am expecting to come with the Federal Reserve really turning on that money printer. What's going to be very interesting leading up to when that money printer gets turned on is if we could just see it in an easy, predictable way like the Fed wants, interest rate cuts slowly but surely, and, them not having to go too crazy on asset purchases, or if we will see all this geopolitical tension just start to really rise up and then the Fed have to step in and do what is considered a Fed put or has been a Powell put or will now be known as a Warsh put when he gets into the place of the federal chairman. That is just when the Fed instantly does something crazy, like drops rates down to 0% or really turns on that money printer. Eric, I know you have been talking about Kraken for so long. You have caught me live here so we can actually officially talk about Kraken. I know you've been waiting for me to do a video. I appreciate your persistence on that. And just like we talked about in last live stream, the last Sunday weekly preparation, persistence and determination is all an individual needs. And if you have enough persistence and determination, you will get what you want. So my friend, we will now finally talk about Kraken, because I know you have been talking about it for so long. So Kraken Robots works with Anduril, amazing financial backlog and building new facilities to support new Anduril contracts. Let's take a look. Eric, I do believe in you when you talk about Kraken. It's a shame that it is not on Robinhood. But my friend, I recently did open up a Charles Schwab account so I could finally start to get into Kraken Robotics. But I've seen you've been talking about this on my on my channel for quite some time. I know this is a small cap out in the Canadian market, 2.57 billion in Canadian dollars here. In the short term, in the last year, really since September, we have seen a bullish run all the way from 252 all the way to 6, compared to the robotics stock that we have been talking about on this channel, one that I know you are also bullish on, Eric. That is Rich Tech Robotics. It has definitely outperformed Rich Tech. A shame right now to see Rich Tech all the way down to $2.30. Now, I need to do more research on Kraken Robotics, but what I will say, when we do look at their quarterly finances, they are doing great with their year over year up 60% and their net income up 101%. So something that Wall Street likes to see is not only large revenue, but also large net income. Their profit margins up by 26%. So it does look like Kraken is a winner here. And again, Eric, I just deposited some money into Charles Schwab, and so I can finally start to get into Kraken Robotics. But in terms of their revenue and their actual net profit, looking pretty great there. They are still in the small cap range. I wish I could see the technicals like I do here on Rich Tech Robotics on Kraken, because it would be interesting to see where Kraken is in terms of 50-day, 200-day MA, and all those different technical analysis. Earnings per share, it looks like they are actually in the positive here, 0.05, so 5 cents for the EPS. Let's see if I can find them here on Barron's too. Give me just a second as I look up. Let's see if they are on here. Okay, perfect. We got Kraken Robotics here. PE is pretty high here, 140, so an elevated PE, but that is a lot of companies in the markets that have elevated PE. A PE of 140 isn't that crazy. That just means that the price is outpacing the earnings. Investors are expecting a lot of growth, similar to when we look at Palantir. I mean, their PE is up 100 points above Kraken's PE at 140 to 240, but investors with Palantir know that Palantir is a bit overvalued, but they are investing into Palantir for the future growth. So the same could be said here with Kraken. And right now, what I also like, not only is it a small cap, but not a ton of shares outstanding at just 306 million. That's actually less than Big Bear has. And let's take a look here at Kraken Robotics and see if they've done any dilution in the past. Let's see if they are a company that is known to dilute, or how they are with that. So they have historically used share issuance to fund growth and acquisitions. You know, that is with basically all small caps. So when I talk about dilution, it's not always a negative. It's just always important to look at the dilution. So shares outstanding rose significantly with over 300 million reported as of 2025. You know, they were raising capital. So I'm not seeing anything. Let's take a look here at the long-term chart with Kraken, the max chart, when it comes to dilution. So I haven't seen any dilution to really ruin the chart right here. It's not like a penny stock where you've seen in the past, because of all the dilution, it will show that the share price was 1,000. It wasn't, but because of all that dilution, it ends up equaling that with all the shares that have came out. But Eric, it looks like you have a winner up here. 3,300 all time, has been on a crazy rip, looking like NVIDIA, my friend. This is why I love the investing community that we have, because you have talked about this time after time. And because of that, I'm going to get into it on Charles Schwab. And I do appreciate you reaching out about Kraken and being so persistent on talking about Kraken Robotics. And, you know, compared to Rich Tech Robotics, now I just got to say, because I know you are in the robotics markets just like I am very disappointed to how Rich Tech has performed here in the short term. So I am still very bullish on the technology with Rich Tech, and then also with them working out in Las Vegas, Nevada. Real utility. You could see them at the Las Vegas Golden Knights. You could see them in other areas of Vegas. But one thing I really hated to see with Rich Tech Robotics, and something that, you know, is where the where some of the volatility is really present with small caps, and where these things could be a bit more shaky. They do provide tremendous ROI possibilities, but also you always run into the possibility of what Rich Tech Robotics did, which was they diluted right after a bad fake news article. They were set to work with Microsoft. That was what was said, but then that did not actually happen, and we saw the stock drain from that point. So basically a pump and dump now at $2.30 and under the 200-day and 50-day MA, and possibly seeing a bearish cross, which is very disappointing to see. Also dropping on the relative strength index, possibly seeing a bullish cross on the MACD. I'm still very bullish on the actual company of Richtech Robotics. I do see expansion with this company, and I do expect for 2026 to be a big year with robotics, but very unfortunate to see that in the short term. But I do have a lot of leaps with Richtech Robotics going out to 2027 and 2028. So I do still expect a big future with Richtech, but here in the short term, that sucked to see a fake news article that did cause something like this. And so not a bad idea to diversify within the robotics industry and also internationally. So I do like the suggestion of Kraken. Eric, thank you once again. Big Bear AI rebounds to $4.14. Let's take a look here at Big Bear at 407, having a 4% drop here in the overnight session. But again, this is nothing in particular with just Big Bear AI, but actually because of the macros in general falling altogether. X payments, XRP, quietly listening at work. Hey, Krishan the mom, thank you so much for joining us. I know you were disappointed to miss the last couple of live streams. Great to see you here today. Yeah, we just talked here in the first 30 minutes of the stream about what to expect this upcoming week within the markets. We talked about the volatility index, the fear and greed index, how we have a lot in fear right now, how oil has officially reached all the way up to 108, 109. Whoa, we are seeing oil rise significantly during this stream. My goodness, we opened up at 107 when the futures opened, and oil just continuing to rise almost all the way up to 110. We had a special guest on earlier, the Arizona Oracle, and he was saying that he could expect oil by 120 this week. So we'll see if his prediction does end up being true. But again, if you just joined us, we talked about all of this, including oil, the volatility index, the economic calendar, the earnings calendar. We talked about a bit of different defense stocks. And then also we had our special guest on who talked about silver, oil. He's a military veteran, so he talked just a bit about what he expects with the war. And he even knows somebody out in Washington, as he was mentioning, who gave him some insight on what to expect. And that Washington official is not expecting boots on the ground currently out in Iran, but we'll just have to see how that develops. Again, here in the short term this weekend, we have seen a lot happen around that territory. We saw a massive strike on, I believe it was an oil reserve of theirs. And so oil here is pushing significantly up 20% here in just the overnight hours. Pretty crazy what oil is doing. But again, I will say what I was saying earlier. Just like any stock chart, whether it's the hard metals, whether it's technology, whether it's oil, whatever you are investing into, just know that if you are going to go into oil, just know the difference between a trade and an investment, because oil is jumping significantly and now is extremely overextended on the relative strength index at 93 and also the MACD. So a good idea to trade in oil, you could catch the momentum trade, but if you are going to invest into oil, I would say just proceed with some caution, because with oil also, it's funny, this industry right here is one where it's like when the price of their products go up, the government starts coming after them, the president, there's so much with oil, there's always a push to keep oil down. So it's like with all these other products, Apple, with technology, Tesla, whatever it is, they are freely able to raise their prices. But when it comes to oil, it is not as nice that way. A ton of money to be made for the oil producers, especially here at this elevated level. But I would not expect to see some type of pullback, especially because we have seen a massive gap here, and gaps are typically meant to be filled. So I'm not saying like by tomorrow by any means, but I do expect for this gap to be filled. So if you want to short oil, possibly an opportunity there, or even if you possibly want to go long here in the short term, but again, just proceed with some caution. But things are looking very bullish for oil, where things are not looking as bullish for individual stocks. I noticed that views of YouTube videos about cars and stocks are way down because people are broke. Hang in there. Lord of Swords, you've been a long-term subscriber with this channel. I know you've been with us since the very beginning. I believe you were even on this channel when I was at less than 1,000. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, just like I talked about in my last weekly live stream, persistence and determination. If you have enough persistence and determination, a man with those two qualities can succeed to the greatest levels. I do believe in persistence and determination. That is why we are still here, still doing this every single Sunday, still coming out with weekly videos, even if there aren't too many tuning in right now, because I appreciate everybody who is tuning in, and it's all of you that keep me going. And so I do have a long-term vision with this channel. I want to do a lot more. Growth has been slow here in the long term, but you are not kidding when you say that, Lord of Swords, because I notice with my videos, it's like when things are very bullish in the markets, the views are tuned way up, which is crazy because now that I have been through a whole cycle of doing this, I've been on YouTube since September of 2024. I could say that YouTube views on videos, especially bullish views, could be an indicator that we are going to turn around. And the same to be said when we are bearish. So very interesting how views on the stock market do correlate with either bullish or bearish momentum. And I've also seen the bears videos, their views have gone up. Those who are constantly bearish on the markets 24/7. Peter Schiff right now is getting a lot of views, but well deserved, as he has talked about gold for a long time. But wow, look at that. We just saw a price of 110 on oil here for the future. So oil is having a massive jump here in the overnight session and in the futures market. Let's take a look here, see if the major indexes are pushing down more, even with everything that is going on. So yeah, things are very bloody. Again, this is a very bloody overnight session, but we live in a crazy time right now when it comes to volatility. At any time, Trump could come out and say anything on Truth Social, and we could see a massive jump in the markets. Or if we get some type of resolution, we see some type of peace agreement. I do believe the Iran war is going to go on for many years, unfortunately, but you never know. It's funny here with the wars that we have seen most recently. Like, it wasn't that long ago, Trump was even coming out and saying, like, this war was resolved, and he was being congratulated by all these different Republicans, and everyone was like celebrating. I don't know if that was when he said he solved the Ukraine war or if it was something else. It was in 2025, but that's just the type of society and the type of markets that we are in right now. A lot of knee-jerk going on, a lot of knee-jerk reactions. And so, like, if we see the president come out and say there's some type of peace agreement, or we see something get better with the macros, we could see a big push up in the markets, and we never know if it's going to come from our president. So there's so many different factors with the markets, so much to look at. And that is another reason why I continue to do this, because not only do I want to connect with the community here on YouTube, but this is also a trading journal for me. And just by watching the markets over the last year, I have learned a ton, and there is never a cap to what you could learn. The markets are endless. So you can learn about actual just stocks. You can learn about the market cap, shares, so on and so on. Learn how to read a balance sheet, fundamentals, technical analysis, the options market, the futures market, learn about other countries' currency, how our currency is, next to gold, like everything. There's the hard metal sector, like healthcare, technology. It's endless, small caps, large caps, dilution, and the endless amount of knowledge. And so, this is just another factor with the markets, is what our president may say. But it looks like he is reacting here to what has happened with oil. He has said here, this comes from just an hour ago. So it looks like when the futures opened up, short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently, President DJT. So he's actually talking about the oil prices, and he is not talking about how low they are. He is talking about the rapid jump that we have had, but he is saying that things will get better. Again, let's take a look here at oil. Was recently just at 110. Gosh, that is so nasty to see. You do not want to see the triple Qs down by 2.2% in the overnight hours. But again, this may be an opportunity presenting at any point. The government and the Federal Reserve, especially the Federal Reserve, they could step in and save the markets. But what I will say in terms of technical analysis, if we do really see a bloody day tomorrow, this could be very ugly in the triple Qs, and both indexes are pretty correlated. It could be very ugly in the S&P too, because we are falling on the relative strength index on both, and on the MACD, we have had a bearish cross on the S&P, the SPY most recently, while on the triple Qs, we are sitting at a crucial spot where we could see a drop, a bearish cross under the MACD. So we can see a big drop on the NASDAQ. Potentially, this is where we could see some capitulation and then see that Fed put, possibly we see the Feds come in and they say interest rates dropped. We're dropping it down by over a point. We're dropping it down to 0% like 2020. You really never know because the markets are so funky right now. And just as we've talked about all streams, so dependent on that M2 money supply. And it's like at any point, you just never know. It's like this is like when the Fed will a lot of the time step in when everyone is so bearish. I mean, look at 2008, look at 2020, and look at what the Fed did during those time moments. Now, has things gotten that bad where the Fed has to step in right now? Most likely not. I don't expect for the Fed to do any crazy stimulative, money printing or cut interest rates by any means by this next meeting. We do have some economic news on the calendar this week, but the Fed's expectations for cutting at this next meeting, I had it up earlier. It looks like I closed the tab, but right now less than 5%. I am really not expecting for the Fed to cut at this next meeting, but they could be cutting at the next meeting after Kevin Warsh does officially get into the place of Jerome Powell. So DJT under $10. What are your thoughts? Yeah, has Trump Media and Technology Group dropped under that $10 mark officially? Let's take a look here. You are right at $9.90. I'm not surprised here. DJT has been a very rough stock. I still believe in the value of Trump Media and Technology Group. And as I've mentioned so many times, I invested all the way back here in September, which was a very low point at $12. Now, I did make some money along the way with some options contracts. I remember I got a lot of flack around the inauguration because I made a video about selling DJT, and it was at these elevated levels, but that was just the options that I sold for a premium for a pretty nice return on investment over 100%. But otherwise, the shares that I bought, I have been holding all the way back since this moment of 2024 and now officially underwater. But this does not change my thesis with Trump Media and Technology Group. I am still bullish on this play. There are a lot of politicians that hold on to Trump Media and Technology Group, also the president himself. And this right here, this company, Trump Media and Technology Group, DJT, does have a massive reserve of Bitcoin on their balance sheet and also some big ETFs which are centered around cryptocurrency, the most pro-crypto president of all time. And I do believe that we could see the cryptos wake up here very soon, especially if we see that Clarity Act get passed. Talking about possible trades, another one centered around cryptocurrency. I have been talking about it a lot most recently. I have been day trading in it, and I do have a runner overnight. So with the day trades, I've been trading on Circle Internet Group. This is the company that holds a ton. This is the company that created US Dollar Coin, holds a ton of US treasuries on their balance sheet. And in the short term, things have been looking very bullish, especially if we do see that big stable coin bill get passed out in Washington. But overall, things are looking very interesting right now. We have seen a big gap down in the overall markets, and we have seen a big gap up in oil. But look at where we are here in terms of technical analysis. And again, this is just very short term, but even right now, a potential trade, a potential oversold reversal, but by no means am I expecting a return to the means. I do expect to see some sideways movements until we start in tomorrow's session. We start in the pre-market, the normal trading hours. hours, and then we'll really start to see the movements in the first 30 minutes to an hour. I'm sure there will be many more headlines by the time we open up tomorrow, and we'll just have to see if the bears take control of the market sessions, if there is even more fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or if we get any more around war and everything that is happening in the Middle East. But a lot of assets dropping here in the short term. This is also not too surprising. We were just talking about this in Friday. There's a lot of gamma exposure around the higher levels on these indexes, like the S&P right around 7,000, the SPY 700, and then the triple Qs right around where the all-time highs were. And so with high gamma exposure in the options market, that is where the dealers are positioned, and they have been doing a lot of pinning most recently, keeping many assets pinned under these all-time highs. And so right now, a lot of fear in the air. Right now, I am remaining cautious, but I've also bought the dip not long ago. But as I always say, remain proper with your trading rules, never over leverage. And, I think a lot of us are great traders in here if we are still here after all of this time, after seeing everything we have since October. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live today. We had a small audience, but still an appreciated audience. Regardless, for everybody who did attend today, I thank you for being here every single Sunday, 30 minutes before the overnight session opens. We are always going to be doing our lives. Otherwise, if you are here live or just watching the replay, please hit the like button. Please drop a comment down below. Please let me know what you think about the markets. If you are bullish or bearish, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I thank everybody for being here today, and I will see you in the next live stream. And I will see you all in tomorrow's daily talk of stock. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everyone.